The world of track and field harbors a lot of mysteries that even experts find hard to unlock, and one field that has taken both fans and analysts aback is the women's 100-meter. This event has seen many female athletes come out to compete, but something insane just happened over the event on July 16, 1988. This was the date set for the women's 100-meter quarterfinals during the United States Olympic Trials track and field, which took place in Indianapolis. But what went down on the track that day has not only become memorable, but has been termed the biggest mystery in the world of track and field. American Florence Griffith Joyner, popularly known as Flo Jo, just did the unthinkable, setting the women's 100-meter world record with a time of 10.49 seconds in the quarterfinals of the event. This was an incredible mark in the event, and to date, no female athlete has edged closer to Flo Jo's record. The 10.49-second figure still remains hanging at the top on its own, enjoying its fresh air with no stress of competition. What really happened on that day? How did Flo Jo achieve such an unimaginable mark in women's 100 meters? Be sure to watch this video until the end to find out. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to never miss an update. So let's get started with the video right away. To say that Flo Jo's record was great may sound like an understatement, because this record of 10.49 seconds over the women's 100 meters is something that's out of this world. This had never been seen before and still remains unseen to this date. It was an incredible improvement to the previous record of 10.76 seconds set in Zurich by Evelyn Ashford in August 1984, who was the first female athlete to break the 11-second barrier. And so extraordinary was Flo Jo's record that it did spark controversy in the world of track and field. But how did it all begin? Did Flo Jo just hit this magic number by luck, or was it sheer determination and hard work? To understand that, we have to go back in history and once again look at how Flo Jo transitioned before this memorable event. Now, a look at Flo Jo's previous performance before the July 1988 event shows that she was working hard to improve her numbers. With each passing year, Flo Jo was improving on her personal best and making sure that she is just ahead of every other female athlete. In 1983, Flo Jo's best time over the women's 100 meters was as low as 11.06 seconds. And come 1984, Flo Jo was determined to do something great. And great she did, breaking the 11-second barrier to hit a personal best of 10.99 seconds. However, in 1985, she fell back and hit a season best of 11 seconds. In 1987, she improved on that to record 10.96 seconds. And then came the magical figure of 10.46 seconds in 1988. This was a strong breakthrough for Flo Jo. She seems to have worked so hard to jump all the way from her previous season's best of 10.96 seconds to 10.49 seconds. But the mystery behind this magical 10.49 seconds is that, to this date, about 34 years now, this record still stands as the all-time women's fastest time in women's sprinting history. Even the world's greatest female sprinters have tried and failed to lower this magical number. It's no wonder all sort of questions have been raised regarding this record. It is the record that still holds a lot of controversy in the women's sprint world. First, there's the question of wind reading on that fateful day. Well, for those of you who don't know, all that sprint events are measured for wind effect and adjusted accurately to ensure fairness. This is because the wind has a significant effect on the speed of sprint stars on the track. It's no wonder that the governing body of track and field set a precedent at the 1936 Congress of Athletics to make the legal limit 2 meters per second. This means that any race measuring an excess of 2 meters per second wind will not be eligible for world record consideration until adjusted for legal wind. And this rule still holds to date. Now, looking at the July 16, 1988 event, the wind reading during the race was 0 meters per second. However, some people claim that the wind reading was inaccurate and that Flo Jo's 10.49 seconds was heavily wind-assisted, which pushed the number to an unachievable level. This argument is backed by the footage that was recorded on that fateful day that panned away from the athletes towards the big screen displaying the results. And as you can see, 2 flags beside the top of the screen are waving heavily, which raises a lot of questions. But then again, that may not be a smart way of invalidating the wind reading in the stadium on that day, because maybe the wind reading at the top of the stadium, which is the level of the flags, might have been high compared to the wind reading on the track. This is understandable since the stadium is covered, and so you don't expect the speed of wind at the top of the stadium to equal that at the bottom inside the stadium. But let alone that, there's another significant footage that was recorded by Omega just before the gun went off at the women's quarterfinals on that fateful day. As you can see, moments before the start of the race, someone is holding a white piece of cloth that is blowing dramatically. And even though it's not in the direct direction of the athletes, it seems to be hitting them perpendicularly or at a diagonal angle. This means the wind might have aided them to some degree during the race. Indeed, this white piece of cloth blowing dramatically is another piece of evidence that the wind might have been blowing above 0 meters per second. And so we can't dismiss the fact that at some point in the race, the wind was blowing in favor of the athletes. Still, on the issue of wind, when you look at the races that happened on that particular day, moments before the first and second quarterfinals of the women's 100 meters, you get to realize that the races took place in a strong positive tailwind reading that exceeds the legal consideration. Again, the third quarterfinals also recorded a strong positive tailwind. So what happened that in just a few minutes, the wind just died completely during the first and second quarterfinals of the women's 100 meters and then resurfaced again during the third quarterfinals? What caused that huge deviation? Well, all these inconsistencies are what have raised suspicion on the legitimacy of the wind reading during that particular race. There is also the issue of inaccuracy in the wind measuring equipment. Well, we all know that in 1988, the equipment used might not have been as accurate as compared to what we have today. Similarly, there was a question about the equipment position, which some claim was misaligned. But amidst all these suspicions is the issue of drug accusation, which takes the biggest chunk of controversy surrounding Flo Jo's 10.49-second record. Of course, in the history of track and field, the issue of drugs has always existed, with some athletes getting kicked out right at the final moments of big events. And so when people started to claim Flo Jo might have been on steroids ahead of that event, I wasn't surprised at all. Of course, we may never prove all these arguments with certainty owing to the disintegration of the evidence in the last 3 decades. But looking at Flo Jo's physical appearance in that year of the event, you begin to see a drastic change compared to her body build in previous years. As mentioned before, Flo Jo's personal best before the magical event was pretty amazing, sitting at 10.96 seconds over the 100 meters. Of course, this time was just impressive in the 80s, but comparing that to her world record of 10.49 seconds, you get to realize it was a massive leap from her previous performance. And to put it into perspective, it was a whopping 4.3% leap, which, if you ask me, it's rare. And that's of course what brings us to the question of whether Flo Jo might have been on steroids before this fateful event. Well, Daryl Robinson, who once competed with Flo Jo in college a few years earlier, raised the drug accusation, claiming that Flo Jo literally bought human growth hormones from her for $2,000. She even added that Flo Jo used and distributed these banned substances in their presence. Now, it might be difficult to ascertain these accusations, but one thing remains. The 10.49 seconds is the current world record, and it still stands strong. So there you have it, guys, the magical 10.49 seconds world record by Flo Jo. And as you can tell, it may take many years to come to break this record. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more amazing content like this. Thanks for watching.